I really rely on you, Dr. Johnson. I'm so glad this clinic is here.
The gratitude from our patients is the greatest reward.
When I come in feeling sick, just seeing your face makes me feel better.
There's nothing more rewarding than hearing such words as a family doctor in town. It's more of a conversation than an examination, as I face each patient one-on-one.
But wasn't surgery your specialty originally? Didn't you work at a big hospital?
Yes, before coming to this clinic, I was a surgeon at a specialized hospital. Patients diagnosed at other hospitals as having no further treatment options would come from far and wide seeking advanced medical care. To book a top-notch surgeon, there was often a wait list for several months. Of course, among them were patients who could take a turn for the worse at any moment. In the outpatient department, patients who had waited for over 2 hours in the waiting room were often examined in just a few minutes. It's because the hospital had to run efficiently. As a surgeon, my days were filled with back-to-back surgeries, scheduled like solving puzzles. I was somewhat frustrated not being able to spend more time with each patient. However, the hospital was at the forefront of medical technology, so it honed my surgical skills and I found the work fulfilling. Until that day, after finishing the morning consultations, I closed the clinic temporarily. The conversation with a patient had me reminiscing about my time at the specialized hospital. Anger from those days bubbled up again, reviving unpleasant memories from roughly 3.5 years ago to the extent that I didn't feel like eating lunch. Back then, among the patients under my care, there were those who waited several months for surgery. It was the same when Steve Martinez came in with a referral. His primary doctor, feeling the case was beyond his capability, seemed to have recommended me. Though it was quite a distance to travel for treatments, he chose to trust his doctor and decided to commute. I became Steve's attending physician and carefully explained all possible treatments and surgical procedures based on the detailed examination results from our hospital. For Steve, who had entrusted himself to my care, and to meet the expectations of the doctor who recommended me, I prepared with utmost dedication. However, on the day Steve's surgery finally came up, the hospital director, Dr. Harrison, insisted that I prioritize a VIP patient. This VIP was a powerful figure who made substantial donations to the hospital. Indeed, the VIP needed surgery, but it wasn't an emergency. More than anything, I felt it was unfair for my patient, who had waited months for his turn, so I refused.
He's contributing significantly to society. If his recovery takes longer and his work suffers, it'll be a societal loss.
I couldn't accept the director's reasoning. Is it okay to prioritize someone just because they're a VIP? No, it's not right. When I conveyed this to the director, he was enraged.
Then, I won't allow you to use our operating rooms for that patient ever again.
It was an unreasonable demand. If he had said, then let another doctor perform the VIP surgery, then I would have understood. Though, that decision would still be immature. The director, while angry, was calculating about money.
The VIP has specifically asked for you, Dr. Johnson. So we need you to perform the surgery.
The director probably didn't want to upset the VIP and risk losing substantial donations.
If you let your emotions dictate and perform a half-baked surgery, I'll make sure you're out of this industry.
Dr. Harrison threatened me with a menacing look. I am a doctor, responsible for people's lives. I have pride as a surgeon. I've never and will never perform subpar surgeries on any patient. Such insinuations infuriated me. But at this rate, Steve would get caught in the crossfire. I had promised Steve I would perform the surgery, and I wanted to be responsible for his care until his recovery. However, given the situation, I probably had no choice but to operate on the VIP patient today. I doubted the obstinate director would retract his words, even if I proposed an alternative. And to ask another doctor in a hospital where terms like half-baked surgery were thrown around so casually was concerning. Moreover, surgeons experienced in cases like Steve's were limited. My superior, the only person in the hospital I respected, was scheduled to operate on another patient that day. Desperate, I consulted my superior during his break. He reached out to a university hospital where a professor he graduated with worked and arranged for Steve's transfer. Upon explaining the situation, they promised to schedule surgery soon. I was familiar with Professor West's papers, and I knew he was a more seasoned and excellent surgeon than me. Relieved that Steve's transfer was arranged, I went to explain the situation to him. Of course, I couldn't say it was to prioritize a VIP patient, but I didn't want to lie outright, so I said it was due to the hospital's circumstances. Although Steve had every right to be angry at me, he sympathized, seeing me repeatedly apologize.
I really wanted to entrust my life to you, Dr. Johnson. But I've been a businessman too. I know sometimes decisions are made above you and there's nothing you can do.
Seeing a dejected Steve only intensified my guilt. Dr. West is a more experienced and capable surgeon than me. I'm truly praying for your swift recovery. I left Steve in the care of the nurse preparing for his transfer and headed for the VIP patient's surgery. After successfully completing the surgery on the VIP patient and around the time he was discharged, I received word from Dr. West at the university hospital that Steve's surgery had been a success. Ever since Steve's transfer, Dr. West and I had been in regular contact. Through our periodic updates, I was relieved to hear that Steve's post-surgery condition remained stable. Around this time, I got a call from my mom telling me that the local clinic near our family home, where I grew up, was shutting down. Actually, I frequented that clinic as a child due to my frail health. A significant reason I aspired to become a doctor was because of that clinic's physician, Dr. Swanson. The kids used to playfully call him Dr. Swan due to his name's resemblance to the bird. It was a family clinic that primarily focused on internal medicine and treated everyone from children to the elderly. But patients went to him for anything and everything, any ailment or discomfort. Now, due to Dr. Swanson's aging and chronic health issues, and with no one to take over, he decided to retire. Wanting to express my gratitude, I decided to visit the clinic. Though he had aged considerably, Dr. Swanson's dignified demeanor as a physician remained unchanged. Watching him interact with every patient, not just as a doctor, but as one human to another, I felt like I was witnessing the true essence of a physician. Seeing the patients who depended on this clinic, I felt the urgency of keep running this community healthcare. This revelation came shortly after I got the news of Steve's anticipated recovery from Dr. West. Something inside me snapped at this juncture. My discontent with Dr. Harrison had been growing, and I decided to resign from my current hospital position. I still had a few surgeries lined up, and transitioning my patients took time, so it was about 3 months before I could officially leave. I was concerned about the patients I couldn't oversee until their discharge, but if I kept using that as a reason, I'd never be able to resign. Thankfully, a trusted senior took over, so I decided to leave it in his hands. From today, I am a proud community doctor, renewing my commitment to the path of medicine. In a few weeks, I got used to my new life. The retired Dr. Swanson would occasionally drop by, chatting with patients in the waiting room. Having Dr. Swanson, who had been everyone's go-to doctor for years, is really reassuring for the patients. It seems like Dr. Swanson himself has been feeling better since his retirement. Being a doctor comes with a heavy responsibility. In the clinic, there's only one doctor, so missing a diagnosis can be life-threatening. That kind of pressure might have unknowingly taken a toll on his health over the years. For me now, it feels more fulfilling than burdensome. As I build trust with patients, I find myself wanting to engage deeper with each individual. It's a stark contrast from my days as a surgeon, where faces would fade from memory weeks after discharge. 3 years later, after I had well settled into my role as a town doctor, I received a call from Dr. West. It was unfortunate news that Steve's cancer had recurred.
So, Steve has expressed his desire for you to perform the surgery.
The word Dr. West said surprised me.
Of course, I informed him about your current position at the clinic, but he said that since the surgery could be life-threatening, he didn't want to have any regrets.
I felt indebted to Steve due to the past incident where he had to be transferred because of the VIP patient prioritization. I believe the surgery he had under Dr. West's guidance should have removed all of the tumor. The recurrence was just plain bad luck. From a patient's perspective, it's terrible to think one's fate could be dictated by sheer luck. I wondered if accepting Steve's request would hurt Dr. West's professional pride, but then he said,
I've always felt it's a waste for you to let your surgical skills go dormant in a clinic. Would you consider working with me at the university hospital?
This offer from him was unexpected. Steve's cancer recurring made me realize how much I had regretted not being able to perform his surgery back then. To atone for my past and to operate on Steve, I decided to join the university hospital. I initially thought I would need to find a replacement for the clinic, but a replacement was found surprisingly quickly through Dr. West's referral. Apparently, a young doctor from the university hospital volunteered after hearing rumors. After a month-long transition period, and with well wishes from my patients, I left the clinic, and thus, I started anew as a surgeon. On my first day at the university hospital, Dr. West introduced me to the staff. It seemed my fellow doctors weren't exactly in a welcoming mood. Soon after Dr. West left the surgical department, the first punch was thrown my way.
A useless town doctor like you should just stick to desk work.
Looking at the name tag, it read Parker. Having done my homework on the hospital's data during the clinic's transition, I knew Dr. Parker was an alumnus of the university's medical school and had joined the university hospital immediately after graduation. He was an elite doctor, senior to me. Having lived in a world far removed from a small-town clinic, I couldn't blame him for looking down on me. If I put myself in his shoes, maybe I'd have reacted similarly back when I worked at the specialty hospital. Regardless, I was focused on Steve's surgery. While I was still at the clinic, under Dr. West's guidance, another doctor had been treating Steve with chemotherapy and other drug treatments. Of course, during that time, I had also been repeatedly simulating the surgery. When I visited Steve's room, he greeted me warmly. "I promise to do my best as your primary physician. Let's fight this together." Upon hearing this, Steve's eyes moistened a bit.
I had heard from Dr. West, but I couldn't believe it until I saw you.
Extending his hand for a firm handshake. Throughout the preparations for the surgery, Dr. Parker kept challenging me with jibes like, "For a mere town doctor," or "Despite being just a town doctor." But I didn't let it bother me. It seemed my calm demeanor only irritated him even more. Finally, the day of Steve's surgery arrived. The location of the tumor was extremely rare, and it was a challenging surgery with few successful cases, so naturally, I was very nervous. I had thoroughly explained the surgical risks to him. Still, I wanted to honor his trust, as he entrusted his life to me and signed the consent form for the surgery. The long surgery was a success. It seems the surgical procedure was broadcasted live, and the medical staff watched it. I recall frequently watching surgeries as a trainee doctor for learning purposes.
Who exactly is this guy?
Dr. Parker was heard to exclaim after watching my surgical procedure. It's no wonder he was shocked. He couldn't believe that a town doctor like me would be leading the surgery.
I bet if they say Dr. Johnson is performing the surgery, it would save face for the university hospital in case of a failure. I'm sure Dr. West will actually lead, and Dr. Johnson would just assist.
He had apparently been telling the trainee doctors before the surgery.
Hey, who the hell are you?
Dr. Parker confronted me after the surgery. I was completely drained after the intense, long-hour surgery. I promised him we'd talk the next day and took the rest of the day off. The next day, I opened up about my past to my colleagues in the doctor's lounge. When I revealed the name of the specialty hospital where I previously worked, he exclaimed,
"Isn't that where the top-tier physicians work?"
I felt a bit awkward seeing his awestruck reaction. Indeed, that hospital integrated cutting-edge treatments and easily garnered attention from surgeons at clinical conferences. However, the downside was that many doctors there, including the director, were competent but had significant character flaws.
But how can a guy who's been a town doctor for a few years and presumably lost touch with surgery, performed such a complex procedure.
It wasn't a surprise he thought that way. In reality, even while working at the clinic, I had been performing surgeries as the primary surgeon at a regional central hospital. Dr. Swanson, who had run the clinic for many years and was respected for his contributions to community medicine, he had facilitated this arrangement for me. That regional hospital has always been short-staffed, with many doctors moving to private practices or being poached by hospitals offering better conditions. There were few outstanding surgeons, so I was always in demand and never slacked in my surgical training.
I never knew such a path existed for surgeons. I've only known this university hospital. I've lived in such a small world.
He admitted, finally acknowledging the importance of a town doctor. After seeing Steve through his recovery, I've considered going back to the clinic. Even while working at the university hospital, during breaks, I'd often find myself thinking about my patients at the clinic, wondering if they were all right, if my replacement was taking good care of them. Of course, I kept in touch with the clinic a few times a week. When I casually mentioned to my successor that I might want to come back, for some reason, he seemed pleased. It seems he had his share of realizations after moving from a university hospital to a community-rooted clinic. He had started thinking about getting involved in medical care in more remote places with dire doctor shortages. Fortunately, I have a place to return to. Of course, I plan to visit the regional hospital, ask for their blessings, and continue walking the path of a surgeon. It might be a bit ambitious, but that's how I see my life as a town doctor,